sound of iron-shod hoofs pounded against the dusty trail as Caleb Thornton guided his team of 6 horses toward Rimrock Station. His weathered hands gripped the reins with practiced strength, knuckles white against the leather. 48 years of harsh sun and bitter winters had carved deep lines into his face, and his eyes, hard as flint, scanned the horizon for trouble. The Winchester rifle rested against his boot, always within reach. 3 days on the trail with little sleep had left him bone-weary, but Caleb never showed weakness. Not to the passengers who trusted their lives to his skill, not to the company that paid his wages, and certainly not to himself. As the stagecoach rumbled into the station yard, Caleb noticed the station master waiting with an envelope clutched in his hand and an expression that spelled trouble. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. Your comment helps our community grow stronger. Thanks, and let's get back to the story. The station master approached as Caleb set the brake and wrapped the reins around the handle. "Letter came for you 3 days ago, Thornton," he said, extending the envelope. "Rider from Silver Creek brought it special." Caleb took the envelope with suspicion. Nobody wrote him letters. He hadn't called any place home in 15 years, and those who might have cared whether he lived or died had long since given up trying to reach him. With rough fingers, he tore open the seal and unfolded the single page inside. As his eyes scanned the carefully formed letters, something in his expression changed, a barely perceptible crack in the stony facade. "Bad news?" asked the station master. Caleb folded the letter and shoved it into his coat pocket. "My sister's dead." The words came out flat, emotionless. "Sorry to hear that." The station master waited, expecting more, but Caleb had already turned away to begin unhitching the team. "There's more," called a voice from the station house. A slender man in a black suit emerged, clutching official-looking papers. "You must be Caleb Thornton. I'm Edwin Parsons, attorney from Silver Creek." Caleb barely spared him a glance. "Whatever you're selling, I ain't buying." "I'm not selling anything, Mr. Thornton. I'm here about your sister's will. And about Emma." Caleb's hands stilled on the harness. "Emma? Your niece?" the lawyer said, his voice softening. "She's 6 years old. And according to your sister's will, you're her legal guardian now." A cold weight settled in Caleb's stomach. "There's been a mistake." "No mistake," Parsons replied, extending the papers. "Everything's in order. Margaret named you as Emma's guardian should anything happen to her." "I haven't seen Maggie in 12 years, Caleb growled. "I don't know the first thing about children." "Nevertheless," Parsons continued, "Emma has no one else. Margaret's husband died in a mining accident 2 years ago. There are no other relatives." Caleb's jaw tightened. "Find someone else. An orphanage, a nice family. I drive a stagecoach through Indian Territory and Bandit Country. No place for a child." The lawyer's expression hardened. "I've been trying to explain to you, Mr. Thornton. There is no one else. The child is waiting in the station house right now. She's been there for 3 days, ever since I received word you were due on this route." Caleb ran a hand over his face, feeling the grit of trail dust beneath his fingers. "This is madness." "Perhaps," Parsons agreed, "but it's legally binding madness. Unless you formally relinquish guardianship, which would require a judge's approval and could take weeks, you are responsible for Emma's welfare starting right now." Inside the station house, a small figure sat perched on a wooden bench, her legs dangling above the floor. Her dark hair was neatly braided, though wisps had escaped to frame a face too solemn for her years. She wore a faded blue dress, patched at the elbows but clean, and clutched a worn rag doll to her chest. When Caleb entered, her eyes, Maggie's eyes, he realized with a jolt, lifted to his face. "Emma," Parsons said gently, "this is your Uncle Caleb. You'll be staying with him now." The girl said nothing, just studied Caleb with an unsettling intensity. "She hasn't spoken since her mother died," Parsons explained quietly. "The doctor says it's the shock." Caleb shifted uncomfortably. "I leave for Green River at dawn. Company won't wait." "Then I suppose she goes with you," Parsons replied. "Here are her things." He gestured to a small carpet bag beside the bench. "And these are the papers you'll need. Margaret left a small sum for Emma's care. It's being held at the bank in Silver Creek until you can make proper arrangements." Before Caleb could form another protest, Parsons had pressed the documents into his hands, tipped his hat to Emma, and departed, leaving the stagecoach driver and the small girl staring at each other in heavy silence. That night, Caleb made up a pallet for Emma in his small room above the station house, while he took the floor. She went about her bedtime routine with quiet efficiency, changing into a nightgown, washing her face, and brushing her hair without being told. She climbed under the thin blanket and closed her eyes, still clutching the rag doll. Caleb sat on the floor, his back against the wall, and pulled out his sister's letter. He read it again in the dim lantern light. Caleb, if you're reading this, I finally managed to die before you, little brother. I know we haven't spoken in years, and that's mostly my fault. I said terrible things after you left, things I've regretted every day since. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. I'm asking the one thing I have no right to ask. Take care of Emma. She's a good girl. Quiet, smart. Won't give you much trouble. There's no one else I trust, despite everything. You always had a good heart, even when you pretended not to. Don't let her end up in an orphanage. We both know what those places do to a child's spirit. I love you, Kel. I always did. Your sister. Maggie. Caleb folded the letter and watched the steady rise and fall of Emma's chest. In sleep, the worry had left her face, and he could see Maggie there. The way she'd looked as a child, before life had worn her down. Damn you, Mag, he whispered. What am I supposed to do with her? Dawn came too quickly. Caleb had managed a few hours of fitful sleep, waking at every small sound from the bed. Emma rose without prompting and dressed herself, folding her nightgown neatly into the carpet bag. We're leaving, Caleb said gruffly. Stage leaves in 20 minutes. Do you need anything before we go? Emma shook her head. Right? He picked up her bag. Stay close. It's busy down there. The stage was being loaded when they came downstairs. The regular driver for the Green River route had fallen ill, which was why Caleb had been asked to take an extra run without his usual rest between journeys. He'd agreed because the pay was good, never expecting to have a child in tow. The station master raised his eyebrows at the sight of Emma, but said nothing as Caleb stowed her bag. There were 3 passengers already seated inside, a well-dressed merchant, a young woman who looked to be a schoolteacher, and a grizzled prospector headed for the mining camps beyond Green River. The child riding up top with you? The station master asked. Caleb hesitated. Inside would be safer, but he couldn't bear the thought of being separated from her, unable to see if she was all right. She rides with me. Helping Emma up to the driver's box, Caleb settled her beside him and wrapped a spare blanket around her shoulders against the morning chill. He took up the reins, feeling strangely self-conscious with the small figure beside him. Hold on tight, he said, and with a flick of the reins, the team lurched forward, beginning the 2-day journey to Green River. The first few hours passed in silence. Emma sat perfectly still, her eyes fixed on the trail ahead, occasionally glancing at Caleb when she thought he wasn't looking. At midday, when they stopped to rest the horses, Caleb awkwardly offered her some jerky and hardtack from his provisions. Not much, I know, he said. We'll get a proper meal at Elk Creek Station tonight. Emma accepted the food with a small nod and ate without complaint, though Caleb knew it must be tough and tasteless compared to what she was used to. Back on the trail, the silence began to wear on him. He was accustomed to solitude, preferred it even, but something about Emma's quiet presence made him feel he should be saying something. Your mother, he began, then cleared his throat. Maggie. She and I grew up not far from here. Harder country back then. No stations every 20 miles. He paused, feeling foolish. She was always smarter than me. Could read before she was your age. Emma turned to look at him, her expression unreadable. We had it rough after our folks died. Went to live with our uncle. Mean old bastard. Caleb caught himself. Mean old man. Used his belt more than his words. He fell silent, wondering why he was telling her this. It wasn't a fit story for a child. But Emma had shifted slightly closer, her eyes on his face now. Your mother. She always stood up for me. Took more than her share of beatings for it. Caleb's hands tightened on the reins. When I was 16, I hit him back. Then I ran. Should have taken Maggie with me, but I didn't. That's why I haven't seen her. Your mother, I mean. Emma reached out tentatively and placed her small hand on his arm. The gesture, so simple and unexpected, sent a jolt through Caleb's chest. He swallowed hard against a sudden tightness in his throat. Anyway, he said roughly, we should make Elk Creek by sundown if the weather holds. When they arrived at Elk Creek Station, Caleb helped Emma down from the box, noting how stiffly she moved after the long day's journey. Inside, the station keeper's wife took one look at the solemn child and clucked her tongue. Poor lamb, she said. Let's get some hot food in you, shall we? She looked questioningly at Caleb. Your daughter, driver? Niece, Caleb corrected. She's staying with me for a while. The woman nodded, not asking the questions Caleb could see in her eyes. Well, there's stew and fresh bread. And I've got a bit of apple pie left. Emma's eyes widened slightly at the mention of pie, the first real reaction Caleb had seen from her. It struck him suddenly that he knew nothing about this child. What she liked, what she feared, what made her smile. After supper, where Emma ate everything put before her with neat, careful movements, Caleb found himself faced with another dilemma. The station had only one small room available with a narrow bed. He considered sleeping in the stable with the horses, but something told him Emma shouldn't wake up alone. You take the bed, he told her as they entered the room. I'll make do on the floor again. Emma changed into her nightgown behind a blanket Caleb hung for privacy, then climbed into the bed. She seemed to be waiting for something, watching him expectantly. What is it? He asked. Need water. She shook her head, then mimed opening something. You want a book? A story? Caleb guessed. Emma nodded. I don't have any books, he said, feeling useless. And I don't know any stories fit for children. Emma's shoulders slumped slightly, but she nodded again and lay down. Caleb settled himself on the floor, using his coat as a pillow. After a few minutes, he heard a small sniff from the bed. Are you crying? He asked, alarmed. There was no answer, but he could hear her trying to muffle the sound. With a sigh, Caleb sat up. Look, I'm not good at this. I don't know what to do with a child. Your mother should have found someone better. The sniffling grew quieter, but didn't stop. I could tell you about the trail, he offered awkwardly. About the places I've seen. Would that help? A small nod in the darkness. Caleb cleared his throat. Well, there's a place about 3 days' ride from here up in the mountains. Valley so green it hurts your eyes to look at it. Waterfall taller than 10 men. First time I saw it, I thought I'd found a piece of heaven. He continued talking, describing the landscapes he'd crossed. The deer that drank from mountain streams at dawn, the eagles that soared above the canyons. Gradually, Emma's breathing slowed and deepened. When he was certain she was asleep, Caleb stopped, surprised to find he'd been talking for nearly an hour. The second day of travel was harder. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon, and by midday, rain began to fall. A cold, steady drizzle that soaked through clothing and chilled to the bone. Caleb gave Emma his coat, wrapping it around her twice, but still she shivered beside him. Not far now, he assured her, though in truth they were still hours from the next station. You're being brave. The road grew slick with mud, slowing their progress. Twice, Caleb had to get down and lead the team through particularly treacherous stretches, leaving Emma clutching the brake handle, her small face pinched with worry. By late afternoon, her teeth were chattering, and Caleb cursed himself for not finding her better protection from the weather. When they finally reached Pine Ridge Station, Emma was almost blue with cold. Hot bath, Caleb ordered the moment they were inside. The child needs warming up. For once, he didn't balk at the extra expense. While Emma soaked in a copper tub behind a screen, Caleb paced the small room, angry with himself. One day on the trail and already he'd risked her health. What had Maggie been thinking, entrusting her daughter to him? When Emma emerged in her nightgown, her hair wrapped in a towel, her cheeks had regained some color. Caleb awkwardly handed her the rag doll, which he'd carefully kept dry inside his shirt. Thank you, came a whisper so soft he nearly missed it. Caleb froze. You can talk. Emma nodded slowly. Why haven't you been speaking? He asked, kneeling to her level. She looked down, clutching the doll tighter. Mama said, find Uncle Caleb. Don't be a bother. Be good. Something twisted in Caleb's chest. You thought being quiet meant being good? Another small nod. Emma, he said, surprising himself with the gentleness in his voice. You don't have to be silent to be good. Your mother didn't mean that. Are you sending me away? She asked, her voice still barely audible. The question caught him off guard. Why would you think that? I heard the man in the black suit. You don't want me. Caleb ran a hand through his hair, searching for words. It's not that I don't want you, Emma. It's that I don't know how to take care of you. My life isn't set up for a child. I can be helpful, she said earnestly. I can cook a little. And so, Mama taught me. The desperate hope in her eyes made something inside Caleb crack a little further. We'll figure it out, he found himself saying. For now, you're staying with me. The relief on her face made him wonder what kind of monster she'd imagined him to be. That night, Emma had a nightmare. Caleb woke to her thrashing in the bed, crying out for her mother. Without thinking, he moved to sit beside her, awkwardly patting her back until she calmed. She was all alone, Emma whimpered. In the dark. Your mother. Emma nodded, tears streaming down her face. She got sick. So sick. I tried to help, but I didn't know what to do. And then the doctor came, but it was too late. Caleb didn't know what to say. His own grief for Maggie felt distant, dulled by years of estrangement, but Emma's was raw and immediate. Your mother was the strongest person I ever knew, he said finally, and the kindest. Even when we were little, she was always taking care of everyone else. She told me stories about you, Emma said, wiping her eyes. About how you fought a bear once. Caleb almost smiled. It wasn't quite a bear, more of an angry badger, but it felt like a bear at the time. And how you could drive a team when you were 12. 14, he corrected. And I nearly ran the wagon into a ravine. Emma's tears had stopped. She looked up at him with those two serious eyes. She said you were the best brother anyone could have. Caleb's throat tightened. She was wrong about that, but I'm trying to do right by you, Emma. I'm not sure how, but I'm trying. They reached Green River the following evening, where Caleb discovered his regular route had been changed in his absence. Instead of his usual run back east, he was being sent north to Fort Bridger, a 3-day journey through more isolated country. Can't take a child on that route, the station manager argued. Subin spotted 10 miles north of here. I don't have a choice, Caleb replied, unless you're offering to watch her for a week. The manager looked at Emma, who was sitting quietly on a bench nearby. Station master at Fort Bridger has a wife. Maybe they'd take her in while you're on the trail. Maybe, Caleb said, but the thought of leaving Emma with strangers made him uneasy. We'll see when we get there. They left the next morning with 4 passengers, a cavalry officer returning to the fort, a young couple headed to a homestead north of Bridger, and a drummer selling patent medicines. The first day passed uneventfully, with Emma gradually becoming more talkative, asking questions about the mountains they could see in the distance and the animals that darted across the trail. That night, at Elk Mountain Station, Caleb found himself telling her more stories about growing up with Maggie, surprised at how many good memories surfaced despite the hardships they'd endured. The second day brought trouble. Midway between stations, with nothing but open country around them, one of the wheel horses pulled up lame. Caleb had to unhitch the animal and redistribute the harness, a tricky business that left them vulnerable for longer than he liked. Emma, he instructed, I need you to hold these reins. Just hold them steady. Don't pull. Emma nodded solemnly, taking the leather straps in her small hands while Caleb worked on the harness. The passengers watched nervously from inside the coach. Riders, the cavalry officer called suddenly, pointing to the west. 3 of them. Caleb looked up, shading his eyes against the sun. 3 mounted figures were approaching at a steady trot. Indians? Asked the drummer, his voice cracking. No, said Caleb, reaching for his rifle. Worse. Those are Bishop's boys. The Bishop gang had been terrorizing the northern routes for months, hitting stages and isolated homesteads with brutal efficiency. Emma, get in the coach, Caleb ordered. Now. But Emma shook her head, her hands still steady on the reins. The horses will spook if I let go. She was right. The team was already skittish from the commotion, and any sudden movement might send them bolting across the open country. Everybody stay calm, Caleb told the passengers. They might just be passing through. It was a futile hope. The riders changed course, heading directly for the stagecoach. As they drew closer, Caleb could make out their features, hard men with winter in their eyes. What seems to be the trouble? Called the leader, a tall man with a scar bisecting his left cheek. Thrown shoe, Caleb replied evenly. Be on our way shortly. The man smiled, showing tobacco-stained teeth. No hurry. We're happy to keep you company. His eyes moved to Emma, and his smile faltered. Didn't know you had a child with you. My niece, Caleb said, subtly shifting to block the man's view of Emma. The 3 riders exchanged glances. Despite their reputation for brutality, even the Bishop gang drew the line at harming children. It was the one thing working in their favor at the moment. Passengers carrying anything valuable? The leader asked, his tone almost conversational. Nothing worth dying for, Caleb answered, his hand still on his rifle. The leader laughed. Brave talk for a man outgunned 3-1. 4-1, corrected the cavalry officer, who had emerged from the coach with his service revolver drawn. And I'm a pretty fair shot. Another tense silence, broken by Emma's small voice. Uncle Caleb? The horses are getting scared. The leader's eyes narrowed, shifting between Caleb, the officer, and Emma. Finally, he spat into the dust. Another time, driver. When you're not traveling with family. He wheeled his horse around. Let's go, boys. This one ain't worth the trouble. They watched in tense silence as the 3 riders galloped away. They'll be back, the officer said grimly. With more men. Caleb nodded, turning back to the harness. Which is why we need to be moving. Now. They managed to redistribute the load enough to continue, though at a slower pace. Emma remained beside Caleb on the box, her face thoughtful. Were those bad men? She asked after several miles of silence. Yes, Caleb answered honestly. Very bad men. Would they have hurt us? Caleb hesitated. They would have tried. But you would have stopped them, Emma said, with such complete confidence that Caleb felt something warm bloom in his chest. I would have tried, he echoed, suddenly aware of how precious his cargo had become. They reached Bitter Creek Station without further incident, but Caleb remained on edge, expecting the Bishop gang to reappear at any moment. He insisted Emma stay within sight at all times, even sleeping with his rifle propped against the bed that night. The third day dawned clear and cold. They were making good time, the replacement horse pulling its weight, when Emma developed a cough. By midday, she was feverish, her cheeks flushed and eyes glassy. How much farther to Fort Bridger? Caleb asked the officer. For hours at this pace, came the reply. There's a doctor there. Caleb nodded grimly. For hours might as well be 4 days. Emma's condition was deteriorating rapidly, her small body trembling with chills despite the blankets Caleb had wrapped around her. Hold on, little one, he murmured, pushing the team faster than was prudent on the rough trail. Just hold on. Emma tried to smile through chattering teeth. I'm all right, Uncle Caleb. But she wasn't all right. Her breathing had become labored, and a rattling sound accompanied each exhale. Caleb had seen pneumonia before. Without treatment, it could kill in days, sometimes hours. 2 hours from Fort Bridger, Emma lost consciousness. Stop the stage, the young woman passenger called, having noticed Emma slump against Caleb's side. The child needs help now. Caleb reined in the team, his heart pounding. The woman, who had mentioned she'd worked as a nurse during the war, climbed up to examine Emma. She needs warmth, the woman said after listening to Emma's chest. And medicine I don't have. We need to get her fever down. There's a homestead about a mile east, the officer offered. Saw the smoke from their chimney. Might be closer than pushing on to the fort. Caleb made a swift decision. I'll take her. The rest of you continue to Fort Bridger with the stage. The officer can drive. Ignoring the passengers' protests, Caleb lifted Emma's limp form and cradled her against his chest. Send the doctor from the fort as soon as you arrive, he instructed, already starting east across the open country. The mile felt like 10, each step jarring Emma's fragile body. Caleb talked to her continuously, though she couldn't hear. Don't you dare die on me, he muttered fiercely. Not when I've just found you. Not when I'm just learning how to be someone worth knowing. The homestead appeared over a small rise, a solid log cabin with smoke curling from the chimney. Caleb stumbled the last few yards, pounding on the door with his boot. A woman opened it, her eyes widening at the sight of the trail-worn man holding the unconscious child. Please, Caleb said, his voice breaking. She's sick. My niece. The woman didn't hesitate. Bring her in. What followed were the longest hours of Caleb's life. The homesteader's wife, Martha, her name was, bathed Emma in cool water to bring down the fever, then wrapped her in warm blankets. Her husband rode for the fort to hurry the doctor along. Caleb refused to leave Emma's side, holding her small hand in his rough one, willing strength into her frail body. You have to fight, Emma, he whispered, like your mother would, like I should have done for her. Night fell and still the doctor hadn't arrived. Martha dozed in a chair by the fire, but Caleb remained awake, watching each labored rise and fall of Emma's chest. I was going to find you a proper home, he told her softly. A nice family with a mother and father. A normal life. He swallowed hard. But I don't think I can let you go now. Is that selfish of me? Probably. I don't know the first thing about raising a child. But I think I could learn. If you'll give me the chance. Emma's eyelids fluttered. Uncle Caleb? She whispered, her voice barely audible. I'm here, he said, squeezing her hand gently. I'm right here. Am I dying? She asked simply. No, Caleb said firmly. Absolutely not. I won't allow it. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Mama said you were stubborn. The most stubborn man she ever knew. Caleb agreed, his vision blurring. And right now, I'm stubborn about you getting better. Will you tell me more stories? Emma asked, her eyes drifting closed again. About you and Mama? Every one I can remember, Caleb promised. And we'll make new stories too. Better ones. The doctor finally arrived just before dawn. After examining Emma, he confirmed what Caleb had feared, pneumonia, and a serious case. But the fever had broken during the night, which he called a promising sign. She's fighting, the doctor said, and she's young. That's in her favor. For 3 days, they remained at the homestead while Emma slowly recovered. Caleb sent word to the stage company that he was taking leave, the first time he'd done so in 5 years of driving the frontier routes. On the 4th day, Emma was strong enough to sit up and take broth. Caleb sat beside her bed, whittling a small horse from a piece of pine. Uncle Caleb, she said thoughtfully, what happens when I'm better? Caleb's hands stilled on the carving. What would you like to happen? Emma looked down at her hands. Could I stay with you? I won't be a bother, I promise. Caleb set the carving aside and took her small hands in his. Emma, I've been thinking. The stage route is no place for a child. It's dangerous, uncomfortable. No way to grow up. Emma's face fell, but she nodded bravely. So I thought, Caleb continued, that maybe it's time I stopped driving stage. The station master at Green River mentioned they need someone to manage the relay station at Silver Creek. It's a permanent position. Comes with a small house. He took a deep breath. It's not much, but it would be a home. For both of us. Emma's eyes widened. Really? We would stay in one place. There's a school there too, Caleb added. Your mother would want you to get an education. Would you still tell me stories? Emma asked cautiously, as if afraid to hope for too much. Every night, Caleb promised. And not just stories about the past. We'll make new ones, you and I. 2 weeks later, Caleb guided a wagon, not a stagecoach, into Silver Creek. Beside him sat Emma, her cheeks once again rosy with health. In the back of the wagon were their few possessions and supplies for their new home. The station house was small but sound, with 2 bedrooms and a kitchen garden gone to weeds. As Caleb lifted Emma down from the wagon, she looked around with solemn consideration. What do you think? He asked, suddenly anxious for her approval. Emma took his hand, her small fingers wrapping around his with surprising strength. I think it's perfect, she said. It's home. That night, as Caleb tucked Emma into her bed in her very own room, she asked for a story. Which one tonight? He asked, settling into the chair beside her bed. Tell me about our first day at home, she said, her eyes already growing heavy with sleep. Caleb smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. Well, it started when a stubborn little girl and her equally stubborn uncle arrived in a town called Silver Creek. As Emma drifted off to sleep, Caleb remained by her side, watching over the child who had somehow melted the heart he'd thought long frozen. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead, the same stars that had guided him across countless lonely miles. But for the first time in many years, Caleb Thornton was exactly where he wanted to be. If you enjoyed this frontier tale, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with friends who appreciate stories of redemption and family bonds. Let us know in the comments which character touched your heart the most, and we'll see you next time for another journey into the American frontier.